Good afternoon. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Yevamos Daf Kuf Hey, and we're starting all the way at the bottom, 2 lines from the bottom of the page. We have been having a conversation about some of the technical components of chalitza, and right now we're discussing the uniqueness of needing to do rikika, of spitting. That is what a woman is obligated to do in order to effect the chalitza, although that's subject to somewhat of a conversation, and in fact, it's our starting point today. Says the Gemara, 2 lines from the bottom, reflecting on a sheet of Rabbi Akiva that we saw yesterday. Umiyama Rabbi Akiva rikika lo pasla. Is it in fact the case that Rabbi Akiva holds that without rikika, that it would not be pasul, that rikika lo pasla? So says the Gemara, v'hatanya, how can that be? Chalza v'lo rikaka v'lo kira. Let's say that a woman did chalitza, but she didn't spit, and she also didn't read the requisite psukim. So the din is chalitzasa kshera. However, continues the Brisa on the top of Kufei Amud Aleph, Rikaka v'lo chalza v'lo kara'a. Let's say that she spit and she did not do the chalitza and did not do the kriya, then the din is chalitzasa psula. That's of course our din, which doesn't work well with Rabbi Akiva. And as well, kira, what if she read the requisite psukim, v'lo rikaka v'lo chalza, and she did not spit, and as well she did not do chalitza? In that last case, of course, ein kan beis mechush. There's nothing that has taken effect at all. Nothing. You have to do the chalitza. Of course, that should be a minimum. Now, in order to ask this question against Rabbi Akiva, we need to establish that this brisa is, in the first place, like Rabbi Akiva. So the Gemara goes through 2 possibilities. Money. Who's the author of this brisa? Ilima Rabbi Eliezer. If in fact you want to say it's Rabbi Eliezer, well, there's a line in here that doesn't work for Rabbi Eliezer. What's the line in the brisa that doesn't work for Rabbi Eliezer? Here's the open quote: Chalza v'lo rikaka v'lo kara chalitzasa kshera. He says that if you do the chalitza, but you don't do rikaka or kara, that it's kosher. But that doesn't work for Rabbi Eliezer. This brisa cannot be authored by Rabbi Eliezer, because what does Rabbi Eliezer hold? Rabbi Eliezer kacha yaseh davar shehu ma'aseh me'akev. Anything that is a maisa, so that's the chalitza, and that is the rikaka, those things are in fact me'akev. So there's no way that this line in the brisa could be Rabbi Eliezer, the line that says chalza v'lo rikaka. That's not possible. Ela pshita, it must therefore be that the author of this brisa is Rabbi Akiva. Viktani, what do we see in this brisa? What we saw in this brisa was the line of rikaka v'lo chalza v'lo kara chalitza psula. That if a woman did the rikaka, but she did not do the chalitza or the kriya, she only did the spitting, but she did not do anything else, then halacha is chalitza psula, and that goes against the way we understood Rabbi Akiva yesterday. So says the Gemara, wait 1 second. Liman, when we say that chalitza is psula when she does rikaka, that only the spitting that she has done, who is it that is then pasul? Ilema le'alma, if you want to say that what it means is that she's usher to the whole world because she still hasn't successfully completed a chalitza, so that's pshita. Mihavya chalitza de ishtari la'alma. There was no chalitza that was done in this case, it was only rikaka. So if there's only spitting that was done, of course pasha, as the Gemara said, it's les be mechush. It has nothing to it at all. Nothing. It's a 0. Obviously, that's true. It says the Gemara. Obviously, that's not what the brisa means. Elalav. It must be la'achin shma mina. It must be that it's saying that she is still psula to her brothers, to the brothers of her first husband. Says the Gemara. Fine. We were able to establish Rabbi Akiva's shita, but Ula Rabbi Akiva, according to his shita, why does he distinguish Maishna Rikika Umaishna Kriya? So says the Gemara, what's the difference between Rikika and Kriya? Kriya, the Isa bein betchila bein besov. By Kriya, there are psukim that one should read in the beginning, and then the Maisa Chalitz and the Rikika happen, then there's psukim to be read at the end. And in that case, because it's bein betchila bein besov, lo michlef alei, no one's going to make an error and assume that by definition the Chalitz has already been effectuated. That's not true. But Rikika de betchila leisa ula v'sof isa. But when it comes to Rikika, where it's only done in the beginning of the process, but it's not done at the end, there michlef alei v'asa l'mishrei chalutz alachin. There's more of a concern about creating a sense of confusion, and because there is more of a concern of that, we therefore distinguish between Rikika and Kriya. And the Gemara says, V'ika de'amri, there are those who say that, in fact, this is the story that we started telling yesterday, this brisa that we quoted yesterday, is actually a little bit different. So we're actually having a version 2 of a brisa that was 2/3 of the way down from Kuf Dalet Amud Beis. This V'ika de'amri is version 2 of that. V'ika de'amri hachi shalchule. Yevamos sherakaka, if there's a Yevam who did the Rakika, tachlotz ve'enot tzarach laruk pamacher. She can do the chalitza afterwards, even though it's out of order, and she doesn't need to spit again. Says the Gemara, ki hahi de asya lekame de Reb Ami. This is no different than a woman who approached Rav Ami. Havayasiv Rav Abba bar mamel kame and rakaka mekame de tachlotz. And Rabbi Abba Bar Mama was sitting there when this took place in front of Rav Ami, and the woman walked in, she spit on the ground, but she had yet to do the chalitza. So Amar Lei, Rav Ami, chalotzla, Rav Ami says to her, you just do the chalitza, v'shar l'tigra, and then you're welcome to go marry whoever you want, other than the brothers, of course. So Amar Lei, Rav Abba, I don't understand. How can you say that this works? V'haba'in and merak, she has to spit. So Rav Ami said, harakakala, she already did. So it's out of order, who cares? Let her just spit again, so at least she's doing it in order. Really, it should be the chalitza first, followed by the rakaka. However, here she did the rakaka first, then she should then do the chalitza. It's out of order. So says the Gemara, let her do the rakaka again, who cares? It's just spitting on the ground, it's not an avera. Says the Gemara, nafik mine churva. If you do that, people might make a terrible mistake. If you allow her to just spit a second time, just so that it could be in order, that is dangerous. What's the danger? Says the Gemara halfway down on Kuf Hamid Aleph. If you tell her just spit again, just so that it's the rakaka is after the chalitza, so then amre rakika kamaiso less be'mashasha. People will say that the initial rakika was a nothing, and it's not true. It isn't a nothing. So it's not just about spitting again. That's not correct, and it is very concerning. And we'll have an error in regards to who she will end up marrying, and therefore we don't allow the second rakaka. It's just out of order. Says the Gemara, don't we need these things to be in order? They need to be in a specific order. So says the Gemara, when it comes to doing the Seder Hadvarim as it relates to the Chalitza, they do not have to be in perfect order. So when he heard this, when the Talmud heard this from Rav Ami, who savar dechuye kamad chile, that he was just brushing him off by saying, get away, get out of here. But in fact, the Gemara says that it wasn't just a brushed off answer, it was a real answer. Nafak, he went out, dak, and he went searching for a brisa, v'ashkach, and he found a brisa that reflected this exact idea, the Tanya. 2/3 of the way down on Kuf Hey Amid Aleph says the Gemara, Bein shehiktim chalitza lerakika, bein shehiktim rakika lechalitza, masha asa asui. Any order is totally fine. Rakaka first, followed by chalitza, or the opposite. Levi nafak l'kiryasa. Levi was out traveling in a city, and ba'umine, they asked him 3 questions. Gidemes mausha tachlots. Let's say that a woman is a double amputee and she doesn't have hands. So can she do chalitza in another way with her, whatever it is, with her mouth? Can she bite the shoe off? Whatever the case may be, are there other ways to do it? That was question number 1. Yevamos rakaka dam mahu. Let's say that a woman, when she spits, it's all blood. So what then should be the case? And we don't have an answer to that yet either. That was question 2. And question 3 is Pshat Napasik in Daniel. That which is written Bichsav Emes. Mechlal De'ika Ksav She'eno Emes. That implies if this is Ksav Emes, maybe there's a Ksav that Rahman al-Islan isn't Emes. So what's Pshat in these 3 things? And Levi didn't have the answer. Lo hava biyadeh. So what did he do? What every good Jew does when they don't have an answer, they ask a shaila. So it says the Gemara, Asa Sha'il Bei Medrash. So he went into the base medrash. He was talking and learning with the Rabbanim. Amrulay, they said, first of all, to his first question about whether or not chalitza can be done by a gidemus, by a woman who has no hands, miksi v'chalza biyad. The pasuk doesn't say it should be done. Doesn't say it should be done biyad. Then the Gemara says, miksi v'yarka rok. Does it say what she spit? It just says that she spit. So if it's blood, it's blood. Who cares? And in regards to the pasuk from Daniel, how could it be? You've left an implication that something might not be emes. So it says the Gemara, lo kasha kan bigzardin sheyeshi moshua, kan bigzardin she'eni moshua. It really depends. There's different types of gzeras, and one of them is referred to as ksav emes when it's sheyeshi moshua, it's ksav emes. And when it's not ksav emes. But of course, it's all truthful. It's just a question of which gzera is more sharp. And this is, like the very last short line says, Kid Reb Shmuel Bar Ami. Dom Reb Shmuel Bar Ami, Amar Rabbi Yonasan, Minayin L'Gzardin Sheyeshi Moshua She'enu Miskarea. How do we know that a Gzardin that was coupled with a Shavua, that it cannot be torn up? Shenemar L'chein Ishbati L'Beis Eli Im Miskaper Avon Beis Eli Bezevachu B'Mincha Ad Olam. And Amar Rabba, Bezevachu B'Mincha Enu Miskaper. When you have a Gzera Sheyeshi Moshua, and we say it's eno miskareya, that's only true b'zevachu b'mincha. However, aval miskaper hu b'divrei Torah. A person can get kapara just because of learning. Baruch Hashem, if you're listening to this, you're learning. If you come to Daf Yomi, you're learning. If you're kovei itim, you're learning. The more we're learning, the more we can uproot even gzeras that were coupled up with a shavua, a very powerful Gemara. And Abai Amar bezevachu b'mincha eno miskaper. It's true that a gzar din sheyeshi moshua cannot be miskareh from a zevachu b'mincha. Aval miskaper b'gemilus chasadim. When a person is selfless and they do things for other people, maybe especially when it's hard for us to do things for other people, under those circumstances we get kapara. Says the Gemara, Rabba ve'Abaye mid beis Eli kasu. Rabba and Abaye were descendants of beis Eli. Rabba da asak b'Torah chaya arba'in shnin. Rabba, who learned for pretty much his whole entire life, lived for 40 years. However, Abaye da asak b'Torah ubig milus chasadim chaya shisin shnin. A person who does both, they learn Torah and they have gemilas chasadim. So the din is that they, the story tells us that Abaye lived until 60. And Tanu Rabbanan, let's learn a quick brisa, a little bit of an agarata. Mishpacha achas haisa b'Yerushalayim she'im mesim kiben shmona esrei shana. Nebuch, there was a family where the children died young at 18 years old. Bo v'hodias Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, and they told this to Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai. Amar lehem, he said to them, Mishpachas Eli atem, you must be from the family of Eli, descendants of Eli. Shene'emar v'chol marbis beischa yamusu anashim, people will die in your family. L'chuvi isku b'Torah v'tichyu, and go learn Torah. So that's what Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai said to this family that was obviously a descendant of Beis Eli. Halchu v'asku b'Torah v'chayu v'hayu korn osan mishpachas Yochanan al shemo. So this family said, fine, we'll commit to learning Torah, and they did, and they stopped dying at the age of 18, Baruch Hashem, and they named the family the Yochanan family after him. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Unya Amar Rabbi Nain l'gzar din shel tzibor she'eno nechtam. Says the Gemara, how do we know that if there's a gzar din on a tzibor that it's never nechtam, that it's never officially signed upon? Klape Shmaya. Says the Gemara, your question is flawed. What do you mean eno nechtam? That's not correct. Haksiv, the pasuk says, Yim techabsi beneser v'tarbi lach boris nechtam avonech lefanai. There will still be a kesem of your stain in front of me. You can't get rid of things permanently. It is nechtam. So says the Gemara, you're absolutely right. Let's re-understand our question. Elaminayin shafilu nechtam iskareya. How do we know that even if there's a gzar din on a tzibor that is nechtam and it's been signed and sealed, how do we know that even then it can be torn up? Shneimar mika Hashem Elokeinu b'chol koreinu elav. Because when we call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He will answer. Says the Gemara, it's not always true. V'aksiv, Dirshu Hashem b'himatzeo. You should seek out HaKadosh Baruch Hu when He is found. What does that imply? That there are times when He's not so found. So then how do we distinguish between these two psukim? So says the Gemara, when we have Mika Hashem Elokeinu b'chol koreinu elav, and then we have Dirshu Hashem only b'himatzeo. Says the Gemara, Lokasha habayachid habatzibor. It depends. When it's b'yachid, so then Yachid Emas, when is it that a Yachid has such power to uproot Gezeras? Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avua, Eilu Asar Yamim Shben Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim. It's Asar Simei Tshuva. Then a person has a tremendous power to uproot Gezeras. However, when it comes to a tzibor doesn't have Dirshu Hashem Behimatzo. A tzibor can always tear a gzar din. They can always do that. When we come together in shul and we daven for something, we have the capacity, we have the power to tear up a gzera, even if it's nechtam, which is, again, a very powerful Gemara. Shalchu leila avoid the Shmuel, back to our sugya. Yevamos sherekaka dam, a woman who did, in fact, spit out blood when she did the chalitza. So tachlot, she should do the chalitza. Lefi she'ef shar ledam below tzach rok. There's no possible way to spit out only blood. When a person spits, it has to also come with some of the saliva. Meisvei says the Gemara, not so simple. Yachol yehei dam hayotzi mipi. That if there is dam that exits a person's mouth or a person's ama, their private parts when they have a disease, tamlomar zovo tame. So how do we know, says the Gemara, that the dam would be tame? Says the Gemara, zovo tame ve'ein dam hayotzi mipi v'mipi ama tame elatar. That blood is not considered problematic. So therefore we see that the blood is really not connected to the body in this way. It doesn't always have something that's connected to the rope, because we see that in the brisa that the pasuk teaches us that zovo tame, that ein dam hayotzi mipiv, that's not tamei elatar. So that's a steer to what we just said, is that no, the blood always has some of the rok. We know that the rok of a zav is problematic. So therefore the brisa shows that you can have blood expectorated from the body without any saliva. Says the Gemara, lokasha kan b'motzetzes, kan b'shoses. B'motzetzes, when a person is going to be motes, they use some like suctioning in their mouth to collect the spit, and then they spit it out. Pasha, that's going to have a mixture of saliva. However, b'shoses, when the blood is simply flowing, a person cuts their lip and they just kind of lean forward and blood is dripping out, lav dafka, that there's any saliva there. That's the distinction. Cheresh and nechlatz, as we turn to the top of daf Kuf Hamid Beis, the Gemara says, Amar Yehuda Amar Rab, Zo Divrei Rab Meir. However, Rav Chacham Lom in Chalitzas Katan Klum. So different sheet is in regards to chalitzas katan. What about katana shechalta, about a girl? And now let's also speak about women. Amar Yehuda Marav so Reb Meir da Amar Ish kasub beparsha makshimun isha liish, that men and women have the same din. No ish ksiv beparsha isha ben gedola ben katana, that only a man has to be a gadol, but when it comes to a woman who's doing the chalitza, she can also be a katana. Man chachamim, who's the sheet of the chachamim? Rabbi Yossi. And the Gemara tells a very lengthy story as to how we know that Rabbi Yossi is of the opinion that even a katana can do chalitza. The Reb Chiya Reb Shimon bar Rav Havu Yasve, the two of them were learning. That when a person is davening, they have to put their eyes down. What does eyes down mean? Take a look at Rashi, a quarter of the way down. We need to look downward toward Eretz Yisrael. Mishum deshchina hasam kaima. That's where the Shechina is. So then the Gemara says, Shneimar v'hayu inai v'li bisham kol hayam. That was shita number one, is that when a person's davening, they should be focused on Eretz Yisrael, looking downward. One should be looking upward. You should be looking up at the heavens. So which one is it? So they were fighting about it in the Beis Medrash. Adahachi, while they were standing and learning, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi, Legabayhu, Rabbi Shmuel, who was the son of Rabbi Yossi, and let's remember that Rabbi Yossi is the name that we need for earlier. Rabbi Yossi was the one who wanted to say that a katana could do chalitza. So we haven't yet got to that part of the story, but now we have Rabbi Shmuel, who is the son of Rabbi Yossi, entering the scene. And he says, Amar lehu b'mai askisu, what are you guys talking about in learning? So Amru le b'tefillah, they said, we're talking about a tough sugya in tefillah. Do we focus lamata or do we focus lamala? Amar lehu, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi says, let me tell you something. Amar Abba, my father, Rabbi Yossi taught us, your eyes should be down and your heart should be up. To fulfill both psukim. The first pasuk that says V'hayu einai v'libi sham kol hayamim, and the second pasuk of Nasa levavenu al kapayim. Adahachi asa Rebbe lemesivta. Right at that moment, Rabbi Huda Nasi walked into the Beis Medrash, and everybody scattered. In Hudahava Kalili, those who were light on their feet, Yasivu b'duchtayu, they ran over to their seat and they grabbed a quick seat. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi, Agav Yukrei, have a mifsa v'azir. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi was a very, very, very big gentleman, and he was Agav Yukrei, was a very large person, known throughout Shas this way. And he couldn't scatter and move about as fast as everybody else could. And have a mifsa v'azil, so he would take big steps. He was just kind of making his way. Says the Gemara, Amar le Avdan, Rashi says, a third of the way down was Talmido shel Rebbe Haya. It was one of the Talmidim in the shiur. Mi hu zeh shemifsa al roshe am kadosh. Who is this who's walking over the heads of people? In other words, he was walking through the crowd and kind of stepping over people. So he says, who is this person who's walking through the crowd? Amar le, Ani Yishmael b'Rebbe Yossi shabasi lilmod Torah mi Rebbe. I've come to learn Torah from Rebbe. Amar le v'chiata hagun lilmod Torah mi Rebbe. You're allowed, you think you're fitting, you're hagun to learn Torah from Rabbi Huda Nasi. Amar levichi Moshe haya hagan lilmod Torah mipi agvura. No one's shaykh to learn Torah. It's a privilege, it's a zchus, and none of us are really shaykh. And Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi wasn't being defensive to say that I'm amazing. He was just saying no one's shaykh to learn Torah. Just like Moshe couldn't learn mipi agvura, I really can't learn because of Rebbe. And then he says back to him, Amar levichi Moshe ata. Did you just compare yourself to Moshe? And he says, Amar levichi Rabcha Elokimu, is your God? Is your Rebbe God? Of course not. No, and no one's shaykh to learn Torah. Amar of Yosef Shakle Rebbe limitrafse de ka Amar le Rab Chavalo Rebbe. A little bit of an insult that was taken by Rebbe because he was referred to in a not polite way. It should have been Rebbe and not Rabcha. Okay, the Gemara continues with the story. Adahachi, while this was happening, and this is where we're going to see the sheet of Rabbi Yossi that we need. Asya Yevama lekame de Rebbe. A woman walked in and she needed to do chalitza. Amar le Rebbe la'avdan pok badka. Let's go find a way to make sure that she's a gdola. Lebasar denafak. Right after he left, Amar le Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says to Rebbe, Kach Amar Abba. My father, Rabbi Yossi says, Ish kasu beparsha, aval isha ben gdola ben ketana. Now we see black on white that Rabbi Shmuel quoting his father, Rabbi Yossi, in regards to a lemaisa case that took place with Rabbi Huda Nasi, that as it relates to the status of a woman for chalitza, she can be a ketana or a gedola. She doesn't have to be bas mitzvah. She can even be a ketana. So says the Gemara, Amar le, top. Rebbe stopped him and said, wait, you don't have to go out anymore. Lo tzrichas. Why not? Because kfar horazakein. We already have a psak from Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi was of the opinion that even a ketana can do chalitza. So what happened? And this is where some scary stuff takes place. Kamifsa avdan v'asi. Avdan was coming back to Rebbe's table and was stepping over people in the process. And now the conversation turns a little south. Amar le Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi, Misha tzarich lo am kadosh yifsa al roshe am kadosh. I understand that if you need to go do something because your Rebbe said go find out if this woman is a Gedola, if she's a woman, if she's a Gedola, I understand why you're stepping over people. But why do you need to come back? Misha ein tzarech lo am kadosh. Heach yifsal rosh am kadosh. That's not right. You shouldn't be walking over people's stam. So Amar le Rebbe la'avdan kum beduchtech. Stay exactly where you are. And Tana, it was taught with an extra aleph, but Tana, it was taught. But Osasha nitzdareya avdan. He became a tsarua. He got leprosy. And Nebach v'tavu shnei banav umianu shtei kalosav. 2 of his sons died. 2 of his daughters divorced their husbands. And Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, a very, very, very difficult, very high level of hashkafa. Brich rachamana de kaspe la'avdan b'ha'elma. Blessed is a Kadosh Baruch Hu for embarrassing Avdan in this world so that he'll have a sweeter next world. We understand the concept with clarity, and we believe the concept with clarity, but it's hard to live to that level. Amar Rav Ami midvarav shel berebi, from the statement of berebi, a reference here actually to Rabbi Yossi, nilmad, we learn that ketana choletzes bepeutos, that even when she's a peuta, which is a reference to a young girl, 6-7 years old, that you can even do chalitza. Rava Amar ad shetagia leonas nadarim. Rava says that it has to be only once she is at the level of nadarim, which is usually at around 11 years old. V'hilchasa but halacha lemaisa ad shetavi shtei se'aros. We need it to be that a woman has 2 se'aros, 2 pubic hairs, in order for her to do chalitza. We'll stop right here, and Yirtzeh Hashem will pick up tomorrow night in person with Daf Kuvav. Wishing you all a beautiful day.